welcome, Ken. I'm looking forward very much to this talk. I read your blog on the World Economic Forum risk global risk report for 2026, and I think you had some very interesting insights there, and I'd like to bring them to this conversation. And I think every risk manager is interested on not just the report itself, but your take on the report, right? And I think you can add a lot of value for us. Um, before we dive in, Ken, well, first, welcome again, right? And
Thanks very much, Gary. It's great to be here. It's great to be with you again.
yeah,
Looking forward
sure.
to our chat.
It's always nice to talk to you. And okay, so before we dive into the report itself and your analysis on this report, I think it's interesting for us to get to know our audience a little bit. So I'd like to ask you guys, um, what are the risks most critical? What risks are most critical for you in the next 12 months? A pop-up should appear in your screen, and we selected just a few topics here. Obviously, you may have risks that are not in this list. But in the next 12 months, which risks do you think are most critical from this list? And we can see some answers coming in. Okay, it's pretty widespread between the options here. Actually, it's very evenly spread.
Yes
Cyber
to all of them.
threats, yeah, two to all of them. So it depends a lot on your reality, I guess, on your business, right? And this actually reflects one of the conclusions that you took from the report, right? The report has country by country assessment, and Canada
Yes.
surprisingly had a very different prioritization of risks from the rest of the world, from the average in the world, right?
True.
Why do you think that happened, Ken?
Well, I think part of it is you have to remember the audience of the people that they survey. They tend to survey executives, business executives, government leaders, that sort of thing. So their focus is going to be much, I think, in a lot of ways, it's going to be focused on their organization, and they don't get much of a chance to look out and see the rest of the world all the time to see what's going on. So they're
Mhm.
focused on their day-to-day operations. So they're trying to see um, what's affecting them kind of directly. That was reflected in the NC State University survey as well. It was very much internally focused. Didn't look out at the greater world as much, but it was really good at looking at internal risks of the organization, ones that they can manage or try to
Mhm.
manage at least. So I think that's one of the big parts of it. I think probably there's different what do you say, demographically different countries in the world will have different takes on things. So I'm guessing that uh, the more affluent countries will be looking more at the economic stuff, whereas other countries will be looking at more more holistic risks. But I think that's where I mean for Canada, we're looking at the economic downturn because of the way the economy has been going lately and the geoeconomic factors that have affected that. Inflation, obviously,
Mhm.
which has come to the fore even more this week. Anytime for anybody who's tried to fill up their car anywhere in the world. So misinformation and disinformation, I think, is a big thing, especially with political campaigns going on. Declines in health and well-being. We're always trying to assess our healthcare system and how it's doing, and then also lack of economic opportunity or employment. And I can tell you, I have a son who's 20 and he's looking for work, and so it's a challenge out there, definitely.
Yeah. So I'd like to turn the question on you, actually.
Mm,
Um, this is our audience, right? We had cyber threats as a little bit ahead of the rest, but
right?
what's your take, your personal take? What what are the risks most likely to disrupt organizations in the next 12 months? And why are these risks often underestimated or until it's too late? You know?
I think it's often hard to see a far off risk and be able to see how it's going to impact you until it gets closer and closer, and then it finally hits you.
Mhm.
These things can happen very quickly, and we found that out this year. It can be argued whether the chaos in the economy, for example, and the rise in the hegemonic world order was predictable, but now it's here. These economic issues, these geoeconomic issues, they can make the environment and the market hard to predict, and it also makes it hard to make long-term investment decisions. So there's
Mhm.
less capital floating around in the world right now because it doesn't know where to go. It's trying to make it's trying to figure out what to do, but no one can predict what to do in the next few years. So that's a challenge. Often we don't see a large risk as well, like environmental impacts,
Mhm.
because we see a collection of smaller risks. We don't see them all together as one, like severe storms or drought or wildfires that could impact us, but they take a lower priority. But if you look at them all together, you probably come up with a more holistic, efficient treatment for them.
Yeah. Um, the report itself uses three periods, right? Next 12 months, next 2 years, and next 10 years. And we
Yes.
can see a very different prioritization of risks given this difference in time range, right?
Definitely. I noticed that from what interests me about this report is how it changes from year to year. The risk list changes from year to year, and how it goes. What was the top risk 2 years ago isn't the top risk now, and something that was a minor risk or a lower level risk before is now jumped up to the top. So I noticed there were a lot more focus on environmental risks until Russia invaded Ukraine. Now, all of a
Mhm.
sudden, state-based armed conflict is a much higher risk. So priorities are changing. It doesn't mean the environmental risk is going away. It just means that something has come along to be even more of a priority right now because it's immediate.
Right.
I think
There's,
there's.
go ahead,
Go
sir.
ahead. Go ahead, Gene.
No, there is an excerpt that I'd like to read from your blog. I'll
Oh,
put
sure. Thanks.
the blog link here so that everybody that wants to read it can access it as well. It's in the chat, right?
It saves you
But
having to read a
it's a
100-page report. So,
yeah, exactly. So your blog is kind of a summary of everything, right? Um, so the first paragraph on your conclusion is, I'm going to read it from your blog, right?
okay.
Risk practitioners, like myself included, always note that the pace of change is increasing. The past year has proven this again. Never have has the pace of change been so high. The surge of the highest risk from off the list to the third to the first in 2 years show how change of government, along with additional global geopolitical dynamics, can profoundly alter the landscape in such a short span. So this paragraph for me is kind of a summary of my perception also that risk has become more dynamic. It's fast paced, right? And new risks can emerge very quickly and go to the top of the list, as you mentioned in your conclusion. Like in 2 years, you have a new risk that didn't appear on the list before, right?
Right. Yes.
How are you seeing this, the unpredictability of the world?
Oh, well, I think, what do you mean? What do you think about emerging trends? Or just, I think, yeah, for example, well, there's the kind of risks that I look at now. Well, just looking at the speed of them. I went back last night and I re-looked at the World Economic Forum list. I noticed that in the short term, there's the top 10 risks have one environmental risk, and the rest deal with basically humans not getting along. In the
Mhm.
2 years out, there's two environmental top 10 in the top 10, and the rest are humans not getting along. And finally, in the 10-year period, though, environmental risks come back to the fore, and so half of them are environmental when you look at the 10-year horizon, which means people think that the geopolitical stuff is going to get sorted out by then.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, for now, what's coming up now and what's hitting faster, um, what I tell people in my own organization is just keep an eye on the news, keep an eye on what trends are going on out there. Our board is very focused. Most boards should be very focused on what they're what we as practitioners see as our key risks coming up, and what our clients within our organization see too. So what does the CFO see? What does the CIO see? So we need to reach out to those people as well, get a very holistic view of what's going on in the world and what we need to keep an eye on specifically. If you can see an emerging trend, you can kind of see, okay, how does this play out for my organization? And you can see where it can, hit a weakness or something like that. Then you can try and prepare for it by, having some resilience and just saying, okay, this is something we need to shore up. So
Okay.
that would be that's my take on that anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, and this geopolitical risks that are bringing uncertainty into the environment,
Mhm.
it's something that's probably not going to go away so soon, right?
Nope,
So
I
it's
think you're right.
yeah, it's going to continue inputting uncertainty into in the environment for the visible, couple of years at least. That is the scope that we talk about in uh, that they appear more in the list, right?
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
12 months
From
or
what I
2 years, right?
from what I've heard, the initial thought that once this U.S. administration is finished, things will come back to kind of normal. Thinking that's less likely to happen. It's going to be there's going to be a different world permanently out there after that. So
Okay. So, you talked about, keeping up with the news and everything, keeping updated, but I'd like to dive deeper into this.
yeah.
So, what emerging trends should leaders monitor more closely, and how can they distinguish meaningful signals from background noise? Because we receive a lot of information, right? So, how to
Yes.
separate signal from noise in all of this information we get from the news, from media outlets and so on.
I think it's as much as anything, it's an awareness of your own organization, its strengths and weaknesses. Find out where, if you have a weakness, how is it going to be, how can that be impacted or exploited by others? Or how can it affect your organization if you're trying to uh, kind of keep the ship afloat when some big risk comes along? So, in the case of our geopolitical stuff, what do you do with your capital to invest? Well, you put it someplace low risk and wait for an opportunity. So, you're shifting capital, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I'm looking at risks that come up, the kind of the ones that have come to the fore that are more, I don't want to say trendy, but the ones that have come up to be of more interest. And like you said earlier, I mean, it's becoming much more complex, interrelated, and happening and being more dynamic. I liked your comment on that. So, for example, third party risk management. All your suppliers' risks become your risks, and the pandemic drove this home. So the current geoeconomic climate is driving it home again in different ways. Another example is AI implementation. I know of boards in which some members are simultaneously concerned about implementing AI too slowly and missing out on opportunities, but also jumping in too quickly and not executing it well. So there's like you said, you have to separate signal from noise, and just the focus on your organization what you want to do with things. If there's something with AI, for example, what do you want to do with it? What do you think? What opportunities are there? What benchmarks are there? What are your peers doing? Uh, you can find these things out, and so it's a matter of, I guess, looking through the signals, looking at what's trending out there in the world through surveys like this, and finding out where they impact your organization and what you can do to make yourself more resilient.
Yeah. And I think to make this separation even clearer of signal from noise
Mhm.
is getting ever more complex, right? Because the
Absolutely.
risks themselves are interconnected, right?
Yes.
So if we talk about uh, geopolitical risks and environmental risks that seem
Mhm.
to be in a first glance disconnected, but
Yes.
if the economy is impacted, all of the climate of risks and so on will be put at a second priority, as we have
Mhm.
just seen. Like you
Yes.
mentioned that in the top 10 uh, 1 year risks, you don't
Mhm.
have natural risks. You have people not getting along with each other. While maybe 5 years ago, you
Mhm.
would have certainly more topics there. And
Definitely.
so these risks are interconnected because if we're not prioritizing climate change
Mhm.
risks,
Right.
it means that we're not taking as much action as we should, and we're not prioritizing because other risks jumped ahead, right?
That's right.
So it geopolitical risks actually increases climate change risks because
Absolutely true.
less actions are gonna less attention will be given to that and less actions will be uh, taken.
I think
And
that's
if
absolutely true.
yeah, and if you start analyzing the interconnectedness of these risks,
Mhm.
it's actually a very complex web where
Yeah.
separating signal from noise is even harder to do, right?
Yes. It's true. Pardon me. One thing I like at the World Economic Forum report is they actually have some really good graphics of showing what risks and groups of risks are interrelated to show the most interrelated risks.
Yeah,
Those are the ones that where if you can come up with a solution for them, it might be kind of your best bang for your buck because you
yeah,
might be solving more than one risk with it.
yeah. Um, okay, so in this world of uncertainty and in increasing uncertainty that we're living, um, what we can do is internal actions, right?
Right.
So I'd like to ask our audience here a quick second survey.
Yeah.
Uh, what are the steps that you have taken to change your risk management process due to the increase of uncertainty? So, what practical actions are you taking given this more uncertain environment in the world? So, there must be a pop-up there. Again, we just listed a few possibilities of questions, of answers. I mean, there's others, and there's also, we haven't changed anything. Our risk management process is exactly the same as it was before this increase in uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
So answers are coming in, and okay. So we have a tie for now. Some organizations are assessing risk more frequently. So while they would do risk assessments maybe yearly, they're maybe doing it every 6 months or even quarterly, right?
Right. Exactly.
Um, and more people are testing scenarios or more scenario testing
Mm-hmm.
and of shift from risk management to resilience planning also high up there in the answers.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of trying to predict the unpredictable, right? Given the uncertainty of the environment, people are just reinforcing the organization to be more resilient in more diverse scenarios, I guess.
Right.
Is this does this go along with what you're seeing in your clients and in you also an instructor at RIMS, so I imagine you have a pretty broad view of risk management professionals, right?
Yes.
Is
It,
this what you're seeing happening in the market?
I think that's fairly consistent. I'm impressed that there's more scenario testing put in. I think that's a good thing. Shift to resilience, I think, is also, that doesn't surprise me at all. So and more frequent risk assessment too. Again, it's the speed of change it's causing that to have to happen.
Okay. A surprise I actually had is that only one person mentioned incorporate AI to process more information.
Yeah.
Because if the information is more complex, more interrelated, and a greater volume of information that you do have to process,
Mhm.
AI is a technology that could help in that, but it's still not something that most organizations are doing to tackle this uncertainty. They might be doing, but not specifically to tackle the uncertainty environment. That was the question, right?
Right. Might be
But
a
I
small
was,
sample size.
yeah, maybe it's exactly a small sample size here. Well, and I'd like to turn the question on you then, Ken.
Sure.
How can we adjust our risk management process for this new uncertain world?
I think the first thing that jumped to my mind, Guy, was the first answer here: more frequent risk assessment. I really think speed is the key. The risk universe, as we've talked about, is it's moving faster all the time, and you need to see emerging risks and trends sooner to give yourself as much time as possible to deal with them.
Okay. So, and any particular category of risk that we should reduce frequency or increase frequency in risk assessment or across the board?
Well, I think across the board you have to. I always visualize it kind of like a radar screen. You know, you have your assessment as that little blip that goes around, that little line, and then
Mhm.
your risk will pop up, and you'll go through it again, and they pop up again, and they've moved. Some have dropped off, some have jumped on, some have increased in risk, or increased in impact or likelihood. So then
Mhm.
you have to manage those accordingly. Uh, the big thing for ERM is making sure that it's effective by making sure that pardon me, that it's actually affecting management decisions. So as risk managers, we're kind of purveyors of information, right? So we have to make sure that our leaders get this information and are able to act on it. I have a colleague who points out that if you haven't if you're not affecting leadership decisions, you're not doing ERM properly. So, and I kind of agree with that. So it's the important thing is making sure that we have contact with leadership and that we can show them, you know, what's important. Uh, I think, like you said, changing processes, so increasing the speed of them, keeping an eye out for what's important for your organization, and having your organization keep an eye out, you know, in the general world for, like you say, separating the signal from the noise and figuring out what is most important to them. Uh, I mean, we talked about interconnected risks, and I think that was one that struck me in the World Economic Forum report as the most interconnected risk of all of them was inequality, which I did not expect, but it has relationships with nearly all the other ones. So it's I was quite amazed about that. So
Uh,
there's different ways of looking at things, and there's different ways that your organization, being from Canada, we know about snow, right? So we know that snowflakes are all different. There's no two the same, nor and no two organizations are the same either. So your risk profile is going to be different from everyone else's. But you have to look and see what's most important for your organization, and then act accordingly. Find out where your weaknesses are, where you want to shore things up, where you're in your business processes, you need to pay attention to risks that are coming up.
Mhm.
If AI implementation is an issue for you, then look for the opportunities it provides for you while dealing with the risks that it can provide as well.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of see why inequality would be so interconnected with the other risks.
Mm,
Uh, I understand it's like a deeper connection. For example, with inequality, you'll get more dispersion on AI value capture,
mhm,
right? Some people or countries will, generate value from that, and others are going to be uh, left aside
mhm.
because they don't have the education necessary, they don't have the base technologies to leverage, AI value.
Exactly.
So all the technology aspect of it, also in the climate change of it,
Mhm.
inequality is one of big factor that uh, the major uh, communities and countries that will be impacted by climate change are, lower income communities and countries. So it will increase inequality and
Exactly.
also make these communities more vulnerable to climate change. So it goes both ways.
Yes.
Um, and it's something that is not easy to solve, right?
No,
It
it's absolutely true.
requires people getting along, as you said it in the
Yes.
beginning. That's a source
Humans
of
getting along. Yes.
most.
Challenge.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Ken, I'd like to also talk a little bit about technology, right?
Yes.
So this is a big trend. It's been quite a few years now that we've been talking about AI, right? And automation and data availability and so on. So how are these technological shifts changing the nature of risk itself? Uh, Not necessarily AI as a risk, but or technology as a risk, but how is how are these technologies impacting the nature of risk?
Well, I think as in the immediate term, I think they're creating new opportunities, but they're also creating new risks at the same time. So they expose weaknesses in an organization structure. If you have technical debt, if you're lacking the skill sets to work with new technology, that's going to be an issue for you. You're going to have to. It's more risks you're going to have to deal with.
Mhm.
Um, you have to deal with misinformation and disinformation generated on an industrial scale now. Kind of a quantum leap in good things, in efficiencies, but also in bad things, and misinformation, disinformation, cyber threats that AI is going to amplify or can amplify. So um, for the AI part of it, I think that's the big thing. One thing that's a big deal where I live is talking about these data centers that are required. There's a lot more processing capacity now for AI that's going to be generated or going to be required to generate the kind of data that AI is going to produce. And they're talking about just building a data center in the middle of nowhere because it's beside a river and then it can have its own power plant. that's uh, that's a pretty big jump. Having a computer, having a server farm or whatever that's got its own that requires its own power plant. I think that's kind of new,
Yeah.
and it's going to put strains on our national power grids. It's going to put strains on our ability to generate electricity, and in an environmentally friendly way, store this data, generate it, and have these AI engines working that won't again cause more environmental damage. So talking about the interrelatedness of risks, There it is right there. AI in the environment right there. Never saw that one coming, but there it
Yeah,
is.
AI and the environment. And does the World Economic Forum address the risk of AI on the world economy, and also on the risk that we just talked about in inequality? Is-
Talks about the risk landscape changing substantially as AI evolves and it's used in new economic, societal, and military applications. So, in all those ways, you're going to see quantum leaps forward. Like I say, some good ways. We've talked about in some. I don't remember the name of the fellow who wrote the book, but uh, pardon me, he's uh, uh, I don't remember the name, kind of name. Anyway, the point is, they're talking about using AI, for example, for rapid genome testing. So we could even go and splice people's genes to get rid of chronic diseases or something like that, and using AI to make you live 110, 120 years old. Apparently, that's possible. So with that kind of data, so those kind of insights, those kind of opportunities are there. But again, you have to look at the risks as well. Countries are using cyber or using AI to ramp up whatever kind of cyber threats or cyber warfare they're conducting.
Mhm.
Canada's a leader in this. I know Russia's doing it. So the U.S., most of NATO, I'm sure, is well versed in it. China too. So uh, there's again there's constructive ways and destructive ways to use AI, and they're all coming out at the same time. So we
Yeah.
find new opportunities and new threats.
So exactly, these new technologies are actually redesigning the world. In
Mm,
this new world that's emerging, we can't really foresee what risks are going to be there, behind the curtain, right?
exactly.
So again, the unpredictability, not just
Mhm,
coming from geopolitical topics, but uh, possible consequences, unforeseen consequences of the use of these new technologies that are emerging,
mhm,
actually helps drive this uncertainty or increased uncertain world, right?
exactly. Contributes to inequality too. Like you pointed out, there's if you don't have access to the technology, you're going to be left behind. So
Yeah.
that's going to be a problem.
Okay. Um, I'd just like to mention one point, that is misinformation and disinformation.
Mhm,
This is a risk that I think it's closely connected to technology,
mhm.
to
I think so
new
too.
media outlets and so on, and technology itself, like AI. Today, you can generate um misinformation so easily and spread it so quickly, right?
Yes,
That
it's true.
this particular risk jumped to the top of the boards, right?
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit of this, um, of misinformation and disinformation as new risks in the market?
I think just that it destabilizes cultural institutions and it destabilizes societies. The things that we institutions that we've believed in and that we've worked with for generations. Governments, your courts, your institutions that kind of make your country what it is. All of a sudden, people trusted in them before because they said these are institutions, they're permanent, they're not changing, they provide a level of stability for us and for our society. And then all of a sudden, people are starting to attack them and not believe that they're working in their best interests. So they're causing doubt, this misinformation and disinformation. So people don't know what to believe anymore. They don't know if whether their courts are helping them or hindering them, whether their governments are helping or hindering them. And you for any ask a question, you'll get 1,000 different answers. So
Yeah,
it's hard to really tell, like you say, to separate the wheat from the chaff.
yeah.
That's going to be
So
the hard part of the challenge, I think, is again separating the signal from the noise and understanding what's the fact, what are the actual facts.
okay. Uh, I'd like to go to some more practical view of what can be done. But before I jump into that question, I'd like to just remind our audience that you can put questions here in our chat, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Any comment or any share any experience. And we're gonna address that throughout here our talk or in the end of the talk, okay? So feel free to interact. We're eager to see your questions and address your questions, right? So, Ken,
Mm-hmm.
in a more practical note, what actions can leaders take today to strengthen their organization's resilience and adaptability in the environment where threats evolve faster than governance cycles?
Hmm.
Like,
I think you used the right
what can they
term.
do in practice, right?
Okay. Well, I think you used the right term, resilience. The idea being that even the best scenario planning won't capture all the things that can go wrong. So
Hmm.
we need to develop the attitude that no matter what hits us, we can recover quickly and get back to business. The faster and more holistically we can make this attitude part of our corporate culture, from the board chair right down to frontline staff, the more prepared your organization is going to be. Again, I think speed is the key. So using technology where possible to anticipate risks and coordinate your treatment of them. And I know um, where I'm working, we're trying to use AI to come to these decisions faster, to try to scope out the world of risk and what's going on out there. So that's one of many things that we're dealing with, but we're focused on resilience and making sure that nothing can knock us down for a long period of time.
Yeah. Um, I'd add on that resilience comes also with quickness of response, right?
Exactly so.
So if you have a process that is already supported by technology,
Mm-hmm.
by risk management process software that supports, like the one Actio has, right? So
Right.
making
Mm-hmm.
our little ad here. Um, our risk management module, if you decide to, oh, I need to shorten the cycles, I need to um, increase, scenario testing or survey for new risks more frequently. If you
Right.
already have the process anchored in a technology, you can just flip a button and start and implement this new practice in your process, right? So
Right.
having your process supported by technology, I think, is helps a lot in shortening time from decision to action.
I think that's true. I think you can go from, I guess, using. I'm no expert in AI, but I know the terms generative and agentic. So I think a lot of organizations are working with a generative side right now, like they're learning how to generate information. And then the next step, I guess, and you're the expert in this, not me, but it seems to me that the next step would be agentics, where you write the prompt so that your AI solution goes out and gets this data on its own
Yeah.
and is able to report it.
The quickness in the new risk monitoring or need of new assessment for existing risks can be greatly increased by having agentic AI solutions, right? Or multi-agent solutions that will constantly monitor the environment and give out notifications whenever you need to, reassess or risk, an existing risk, or
Mm-hmm.
um, draw attention to a new potential risk, right? So
Right.
we actually do have a full webinar on this topic.
Oh,
If you
fantastic.
join the community, if our audience joins the community, they will be able to access, past webinars. And I
Oh,
think
right.
maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, we did with you also, right, Ken,
Yes.
participating a webinar on how these multi-agent solutions can help monitor the environment and avoid that you have, manpower doing operational jobs. That
Yes.
is practically impossible to be done with people because it's just too much information, right? It would be too
Right.
too much of an expensive process. So whoever is curious can join the community, and the community, you'll find the link here in the chat, right? And there, access this past webinar. Ken, we have a question here from Daniel.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I want to know about geopolitics events. Um, so can you highlight a few geopolitical events that increased uncertainty? That was basically the topic of our conversation today, right?
Sure. Well, I have to admit, last year was the first time I ever heard the term geoeconomic. I know the concept's been around a while, but that's the first time I've heard that word used. Anyways, if we're talking about trade, trade has changed now across the world because, um, for example, the U.S. is coming up with tariffs for everybody, and so other countries, including Canada, are seeking other trade agreements with other countries, so they're not as dependent on the United States for their trade. Uh,
Yeah,
I think that's
imagine you're a business like a steel manufacturer in Canada that
exactly,
got tariffs from one day to the other and had to rearrange all its distribution processes because
exactly.
uh,
And I mean, for a place like Canada too, it's going to be permanent. I wrote a blog about this in the spring of last year as well. That it will make permanent changes, permanently less efficient for Canada, because if you're the most efficient is if you're trading with your partner that you have roads to. You can drive trucks into the United States to deliver your products. If you're selling to Europe, you have to put them on a boat. That changes things. If you're selling to the Pacific, to Asian countries, you have to put things on a boat.
yeah,
So it's obviously less efficient shipping things across an ocean than it is to drive them down a highway. But it is what it is. So that's these are the things you have to adapt for.
yeah.
Uh,
So someone could put here the blockage of the Suez Canal for our business as an example,
yes,
and the Strait of Hormuz now, right? Uh,
exactly.
so that's something that was not entirely expected in just a few months ago, right?
Oh, exactly. That's right. You remember when the Suez Canal was blocked by a ship that had a malfunction a couple of years ago? Uh,
Hmm.
that caused ships to have to change course and go around the Horn of Africa instead. Well, that or not or Cape of Good Hope, I should say,
Yeah.
and that added 2 or 3 weeks to the shipping, and that adds to the shipping costs of everything immediately. So
Right.
that's something you couldn't foresee, and something that it would be hard to prepare for,
Yeah.
other than to
So
try to have some sort of mitigation or some sort of hedging of your costs. Uh, but it's a challenge for sure.
exactly the same phenomenon from the blockage of the Suez Canal that was an accident back then happened
Yes,
again, but by geopolitical
exactly. Strait of
forces, right?
Hormuz.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah,
Uh, an
that's exactly true.
Another comment here, containers were displaced all over the world, and there were shortages of empty containers. So,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. These are risks that you don't even think about. But these are impacts that they happen. Even just getting the containers was a challenge. So
yeah, sorry. Um, what else? Just the pure uncertainty of what could happen next
Mhm.
is already impacts and drives, you know, you start having to hedge everything because you don't know what could happen, you know.
Mhm.
So this increase in volatility caused by geopolitics
Mhm.
um, increases, you know, risks all over, and you
Absolutely.
start having to have insurance and hedges and on things that you didn't need to, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
So
exactly.
this is also, I think, a big impact that this increase in this more uncertain world is bringing, right? It's rising costs. Even if you don't have an event
Exactly.
happening, it just rises costs because you don't trust, you know, the status quo.
That's right.
Uh,
That's exactly it.
uh,
Even the price of oil right now, it's I live in Alberta, and so for the government, it's a great thing. But for us, for everybody who's trying to fill up their car, that's a real challenge. So I guess that
right.
might drive people more to motivate people to look at electric vehicles more. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
And nobody knows how long this is going to last either. So we talk about likelihood and impact of a risk. We also look at things like its velocity. That's what's really gone up, like how quickly a risk can manifest itself, and also duration, how long that condition will last. How long will high oil prices last? I don't know. Nobody knows. So
And I think that we touched on this, but something that really worries me is that these very frequent events that impact life
mhm.
um, will actually deprioritize some risks that shouldn't be deprioritized,
Yes,
that are
that's very
risks
true.
of things that we know are going to happen,
Mhm.
but they don't get headlights anymore. They are
Right.
not in the top 10, in the top five. So, out of the budget of risk management from an organization, I
Mhm.
imagine that the risks that are top five in the next year will get a lot higher budget than what's top five in the next 10 years. You always think, okay, next year I can think about those long-term
Yes.
risks, right?
Yes.
And these deprioritization actually increases, like we mentioned during the talk, right? Actually increases these risks, these long-term risks, because you're not
Definitely.
taking action immediately, right?
That's right. You just don't have the resources to deal with all of them, so you'll deal with them as best you can. I guess you could say in terms like that, your overall risk profile is probably increasing, and so the cost of mitigating those risks to within your risk appetite is increasing as well. So then you have to come up with more resources for that, or manage the resources you do have and allocate them appropriately, which may not get you to the solution that you're looking for, like you said, Guy.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a more um, personal opinion question then. We're talking about increase in uncertainty, and as you put it in the beginning of our talk, most of the risks of 1 or 2 years ahead is could be summarized in people not getting along, right, with each other. Do you see light in the end of the tunnel for people getting along? Do you see a possibility of the new world order that will come out of this, you know, turbulent time as being more eventually more stable?
Uh, I I think so. I think the world just can't handle this kind of well, famous last words here. I'm sure 2 years from now someone's going to point at me and laugh when I say this, but I think the world's capacity for change, things have changed constantly and faster for the last 2 centuries probably, but I think it gets to a point where you just can't take this anymore. Humans can't comprehend it anymore,
So,
and they're going to take. I think a lot of the geopolitical stuff is going to change. It's probably going to get dialed down in risk. If there's a new administration in the United States, I suspect there'll be a lot more effort toward a rapprochement with the rest of the world. And I think that I think hopefully they can put more that can put more effort back towards environmental issues and inequality issues that we said are quite key, because otherwise those will jump up and create a whole new batch of risks on their own.
Yeah.
And the people in charge won't want those to be happening, so they'll try and take what steps they can to mitigate those. I think that generally speaking, new relationships are building now. They won't need to go away once the political situation changes. And I think
Mhm.
where there's tension now, the tension will be reduced. It'll get resolved one way or another. So
Great. All right. That's a hopeful a hopeful end for our talk here. Um,
there's a political writer who used to write in Canada here, and he when things look bad, he would always say, "Don't worry, the sun will continue to rise in the east and set in the west, and young people will still fall in love." So
yeah.
hopefully that'll still be
Uh,
the case.
exactly. That's a hopeful view of the future.
Right.
Um, Before our audience goes, I'd like to just remind them to, if possible, fill in our feedback form. It's in the chat here. It's always important for us to get feedback from you to be always improving on the webinar and on the content that we bring to you. And I'd like to thank Ken again very much for his insights and um, bringing us, the summary of the World Economic Forum global risk trends and report, right? And thank you again, and thank you all for participating, and hope I'll see you on our next webinar. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks so much, Guy. It's been great being with you here.
Same here.
Take care. Thank you.